I have found that a certain type that calls himself a liberal, I always thought I was a liberal. I came up terribly surprised one time when I found that I was a right-wing conservative extremist.
The greatest evil, not even done in concentration camps and labor camps. In those, we see its final result.
But if we fail, then the whole world, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of perverted science. Their fighting power.
Welcome to Arena Radio and the Expats Radio program. My name is Chris Pilie, and here with Trey Roberts.
Yep.
Going to talk a little bit about the NSA. It's been obviously in the news a lot lately.
Yeah, LeBron James has been killing it. But I like the NBA. I'm more of a college fan myself. Final Four. Wait, you said NSA?
NSA.
Oh, I thought you said NBA.
NBA, yeah.
What's the NSA?
Who's playing in the finals?
Oh, that's the Spurs and the Heat.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been a big basketball fan. I don't know.
Moving right along.
You don't know what to say about that, do you?
Yeah, I really can't say anything like that. You know, I'm the guy who played college basketball and still runs up and down the court twice a week. Well, I wouldn't call it running, really.
I was on the chess team.
Was that a bike? Did you really have a bike in your living room?
Yes.
Like a road bike?
I actually do things that are more than just talking to microphone and typing on a keyboard.
By Lance Armstrong? Did I see Lance Armstrong's signature on your seat?
Yes. We sat on it with this one testicle.
You just wanted Lance Armstrong close to your taint.
We went right off into the rated R.
Yeah, I'll just let. Well, no, that keeps it clean.
That's true.
You Google
kid friendly.
Look, you Google taint.
Good Lord.
I'm just gonna say it. Taint your mama, taint your daddy. That's all I'm gonna say.
So moving right along.
So you said NSA?
NSA. You know what that is?
Yeah. And look, that's why we're doing this show. Quite honestly, because I don't want them snooping around, so we're just going to get crap out in the open.
Let them know exactly how we feel.
Exactly what we believe.
Absolutely.
And all y'all can kiss my ass.
And you can't say that on radio, so...
Well, we're not on radio.
I know. That's what's a great thing about podcasts.
Well...
We could say exactly what we think. We don't have to worry about pissing anybody off, just do it.
That's right. Because we're bad like that. We use language. Bad language.
So the NSA obviously has been in the news a lot lately, and what do you think about this Snowden guy?
Well, I was going to ask you, just quick reaction: traitor or hero?
Traitor.
Really?
Yes. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I'll probably change my mind.
I was going to say, now granted, we're coming into, this is the first time we're talking about it.
I'm probably going back and forth 3 times.
Initially, though, you had to think hero.
Initially, my first reaction was, here we go again, another scandal. And it was just like, scandal after scandal after scandal.
If he defects to China or Russia, then I'd have to say traitor.
I don't know. It's kind of like this. I think the way he did it was in the way of a traitor. But then again, who do you go to? Do you go to a congressman and say, "Hey, congressman, this?" Because what are they going to do? They're going to cover that crap up.
Who is he going to go to? The government,
right?
The very same people,
exactly. And that's why I'm struggling with all of this. I'm struggling with the. First of all, if you just look at it as a black and white issue, what he did was traitorous. They got what's his name, Bolton's talking about him being treason.
But can you be a hero and do something illegal?
It depends on how you look at the government.
Because the government weren't the founding fathers
if the government is the enemy of the state, then yes, you are doing something heroic. But if you look at the government as a good thing, then you're a traitor. It's treason. But what they're doing what they're doing arguably is illegal, and we'll get into that. We'll discuss that.
If the program, PRISM, and if they are invading the privacy, if they are collecting emails, tapping phone calls of innocent American citizens,
right?
If they are acting outside the limits, which even as I'm saying this, our government already acts outside the limits of our Constitution.
Absolutely.
But maybe because it's more blatant?
Well, I think that a lot of it's because we've given them permission to be unconstitutional.
No, there's no doubt. We have absolutely given... we have nobody to be pissed off at except us, we the people.
Yeah.
That's why the founders put the first three words, we the people.
Well, not only that, but I mean, as you read more about how all this stuff is rolling out, and I think that's one of the reasons why I keep going back and forth, is because I hear new news and it changes my mind, because we don't know all the facts yet still.
And every time we
it'll
hear
be
something,
like a year, we'll be talking about another child from Kim Kardashian when the actual final
Kim Ye.
things come to, Kim Ye. But the thing is, there's so many facts that keep coming out. I think that what it all boils down to is that, and I always go back to what's constitutional, and the fact that is we've given all of this power to the federal government, and they're abusing it. I mean, they're abusing the rope that we gave them. They're hanging us with it.
And I don't know the guy's name from in the 70s, the Pentagon Papers. The guy who I saw an interview by him, and he came out and he said that he's been waiting for like 30 or close to 40 years for another whistleblower to come out and reveal what the government was doing, like he did.
Oh,
in the 70s.
He was a whistleblower.
He was a whistleblower.
Okay.
He brought out what basically became known as the Pentagon Papers, and I forget what the guy's name was, but anyway, this is kind of how I look at it. I think you just because you break a law,
right,
doesn't automatically make you a traitor.
Well, it makes you a lawbreaker. Because
if absolutely, and I don't think the two are the same.
No, absolutely not.
Because I'm first of all, I'm very hesitant to believe anything that the mainstream media.
Absolutely,
they are so quick to call this dude a traitor,
and that's why I'm kind of in that position.
And it makes me really lean more toward the dude's a hero. Mm-hmm. He supposedly has the knock list. Mm-hmm. Like, he could basically blow the cover of everybody around the world in our intelligence community.
And this guy's 29 years old
with a GED.
Yeah, with
a GED. Yeah. I teach GED class.
Right.
Hey, fellas, the guy, none of those guys are listening to this, but if by some chance they accidentally do, I love you guys. But you ain't no NSA quality.
They could be.
The dude was making $250,000 a year.
That's the thing. That's the thing. A lot of
that's not true.
No, a lot of things coming out now. This is how it goes. The company that he worked for said that was not right.
Booz Allen or whatever.
He was making like He was making like 100 and
Foghorn, Leghorn, whatever they were called.
Yeah, he was making like 100. It's got to be a nerd's name. I mean, come on. I'm a computer programmer, but I mean,
somebody's avatar.
They came out and said that he wasn't making that money. So, do you believe the company?
That? Oh, Booz Allen.
Yeah, they came out and said that he didn't do it. And what's interesting is I was having this debate about this with somebody else on Facebook, and somebody from Booz that works for Booz Allen commented and said that they don't know. People are getting all blown out of proportion about all this because they don't know all the security that goes behind all this data.
All right, so here's the Pentagon Papers. Okay,
right.
The Pentagon Papers was something officially titled "The United States-Vietnam Relations, 1945 to 1967."
Right.
So this is the end of the Cold War, or in the middle of the Cold War, all the way through the Vietnam War, and it's called A Study Prepared by the Department of Defense. And this was the political/military involvement of Vietnam in 1940, from 45 to 67. And these papers were first brought to the attention of the public on the front page of the New York Times in 1971. So here's the Nixon administration already in office, but these papers came out about the relationship with the United States and the government, and among other things, that the Lyndon Baines, the LBJ administration, has systematically lied not only to the public but also to Congress about a subject of transcendent national interest and significance. And I forget the guy's name, but this is at the time Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara created the Vietnam Study Task Force. And again, I'm not seeing the guy's name. Here we go, the leak. Here we go. Daniel Ellsberg. That's the guy. He's still alive. And I saw an interview from him who said Snowden is unequivocally a hero.
Really?
This guy that brought, he said he knew the leaders of the task force well, and he had worked as an aide to McNaughton from 64 to 65.
So this guy here, was he a traitor? Was he found as a traitor?
They tried to use the old World War, the law that's still intact, the Espionage Act or whatever,
right,
from World War I.
Right, the same thing that got Rosen.
I'm trying to think, who was the president that would have enacted World War
was
I? Oh, yeah,
Woodrow Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson,
oh, okay.
Right. Progressives.
We love him.
Right, because progressives love a leak.
Yeah.
When it's on a Republican administration.
Absolutely.
Okay. Right, dude, right now, Snowden would have his own monument.
What?
If he
right next to the Washington Monument.
Right,
they might tear that one down.
They would tear it down. As a matter of fact, they'd erect a big snow globe and just be a big for Snowden. They would call it. He would live there. It'd be called the Snowden. Right? And it's just a big snow globe, big lit snow globe. You could see it from space. You know.
He'd be on he'd be an anchor somewhere.
But here's where I think this is where it becomes. Obviously, it's not as simple as this, but this is as simple as I look at it. If he has exposed the government acting unconstitutional and I don't know what you would call it, totalitarian,
yeah,
then he's a hero. I don't care.
I agree with you,
how it comes out.
I agree with you.
If that information now is made public, whether anybody changes anything, because I don't think there's any putting the genie back in.
But see, a lot of people are saying that what he has brought out is no big surprise, and that the politicians are simply using this as a ball to kick back and forth to use politically.
And that's probably true.
And, I guess for me, I always suspected what he said is taking place.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've always...
I was more worried about Google because Google said they were doing it.
Listen, I took a liberation sociology class to...
Good Lord. Who gave that one? Karl Marx?
To renew my certification to be a teacher.
Good for you.
During the summer. Oh, you remember? Just a couple years ago.
Did you have to plow sugarcane?
Oh, wait, we had to.
In Cuba?
Karl Marx, the professor openly said she was a Marxist. And we read 1980. Now, you got to figure this out. The required reading in a class was 1984.
Well, that's because they don't know what the hell they want.
Well, but
Marxists don't like the fact that don't like a police state. They don't like police.
Oh, no.
Only unless it's their police.
They compared 1984 to the Bush administration.
Oh God! But yet we have that under this Marxist president.
It makes no sense. But listen, I blew the class up. I mean, literally, because everything she said, I was like, yeah, but that failed. And then she'd bring up another point because remember, the class is about sociology. Mm-hmm. So it was supposed to be like the history of liberation sociology, the type of sociology that brings about change.
Can I audit that class?
Oh, dude, it was an interesting class. I got a B out of it. And, she never got disrespectful or anything, but you could see that my simply being there and asking her to explain certain aspects of everything she was just saying that this is good and this is good.
Was it one of those raise your hands type of thing?
Oh, yeah, no.
Did you have like something like to hold your hand up the whole time?
Yeah, really. And look, my whole thing was trying to rescue everybody in the class. Because...
Don't listen to her.
And I told people that. I mean, I absolutely... But anyway...
No single person can train all the math and science teachers we'll need to equip our children for the future. Or build the roads and networks and research labs that will bring new jobs and businesses to our shores. Now, more than ever, we must do these things together as one nation and one people.
Would anybody agree that there's one person that can teach all students. No. There's no one out there that's going to agree with that. There's nothing that we can do to guarantee that every hardworking American in this country is successful. Nothing. It is impossible. Just as it's impossible to put their hands on every head in this country, it's impossible to make them successful. It's impossible to make them do what it will take to be successful, and it is impossible to provide the virtue that will make them successful. That is for us to find within ourselves, not for government to provide. Period. There's no public policy that can be created by the greatest minds in the world that can give and provide every person in this country with the ability to succeed. That is utopianism. That is insane. And what's sad is there's so many people that believe that this man can, within his hands, make that type of difference. That is scary. It's impossible. It's hard enough for me to get my son to be successful. He's acting as a parent here to 300 some odd million people. And as if he can build some kind of system with schools and roads and bridges that can provide success to all of us. But you need to twist your mind a little bit in order to understand the words of a statist. Because success to him can be rewarded by him. Because he can take money from the rich and give to the poor. And that is the virtue that is needed. Working for something requires labor and sacrifice. And not all of us succeed with that. We don't all succeed. And those that do succeed, it's because our efforts are recognized by the so-called collective. The people determine what's successful and what's not.
Arena Radio.
Check out Arena Radio on lanternsofliberty.us.
It'd have been
Well,
great.
you're talking about the fact that all it took was it's the constitutional thing.
Yeah, so it really goes back to being quite simple. Do I think that Snowden and this whole NSA deal? I don't think we can put the genie. The American people have lost the power, the popular sovereignty that this is just my opinion, that the founding fathers gave us when they formed our government and gave us the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We have abdicated our popular sovereignty to where the government, and I would challenge anyone to argue against me on this point, the government no longer serves us.
No.
So when people go to Capitol Hill, as noble as it might be for these Tea Party people to look at congressmen and say that you work for me, no, we are subservient. We are not supposed to be.
Right.
But this is just.
But we're going for them, always going to them to try to fix
positive.
this.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't see any exits. I don't see how we get off of this path.
Let's do this. Let's listen to a little bit of Snowden, and let's see if we can, let's do a little dialogue with it. So we're gonna play a little of Snowden right here.
My name's Ed Snowden. I'm 29 years old. I work for Booz Allen Hamilton as an infrastructure analyst for NSA in Hawaii.
What are some of the positions that you held previously within the intelligence community?
I've been a systems engineer, systems administrator, senior advisor for the Central Intelligence Agency, solutions consultant, and...
Now, you know, first of all, the frustrating thing is he went to the Washington Post first. He went to the American media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, the Washington Post isn't, of course, it's not obviously not a conservative media source,
Right.
But he went to the American media first, and they didn't deem it even worthy of a story.
Well, one of the things, and we can actually go into a little more detail about this whole dynamic between Glenn Greenwald
from the UK Guardian.
Yeah, he actually has spoken at Marxist Socialist Leninist group sessions.
Really?
Yes. Trevor Loudon, our friend Trevor Loudon, brought some of that information out. And if you go to KeyWiki, it's definitely something you can read about that. But it is kind of interesting, and this kind of brings into this. I've always looked at anarchists, and Marxists. They work on the same frame. They're both trying to revolt against a current system. Once you get
capitalism, against
once you get on the other side of that, that's where they differ. It's like fascists and communists. They're both trying to do the same thing until they get there. Once they get what they want, then they operate differently.
Or if they're the only two in the ring, they'll gladly fight each other.
Right. So this guy, and you got to kind of put the halo around all of this with the whole idea of it being espionage and the Chinese, and then he goes to a Marxist. And I say he's a Marxist. I didn't actually listen to all of his...
But you think Snowden's a Marxist?
Who knows? Well, actually, what's interesting is
he voted for Obama.
Yeah, they said that... No, that's wrong. They said that he voted for Ron Paul.
No, they said he contributed to Ron Paul.
Okay.
He made monetary... But he said...
And then he voted... So he said that he voted for...
He said he believed... I think we'll hear it in this...
He said I think the way it was, and we'll listen to it.
I hope he's a Ron Paul.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would make me... Because Ron Paul people, by all means, I mean, some of them are really quirky, but they're pretty...
I'll take a hardcore libertarian.
Right, over a Marxist any day.
I'll take an anti-Semitic libertarian over a Marxist any day.
Right. So, I don't know, to me, it's just an interesting dynamic there, and there's a rabbit hole you can go down if you want to start digging into these people. But let's listen to a little more.
A telecommunications information systems officer.
One of the things people are going to be most interested in...
That's Greenwald.
In trying to understand who you are and what you're thinking is there came some point in time when you crossed this line of thinking about being a whistleblower to making the choice to actually become a whistleblower. Walk people through that decision-making process.
When you're in positions of privileged access, like a systems administrator for these sort of intelligence community agencies, you're exposed to a lot more information on a broader scale than the average employee. And because of that, you see things that may be disturbing, but over the course of a normal person's career, you'd only see one or two of these instances. When you see everything, you see them on a more frequent basis. And you recognize that some of these things are actually abuses. And when you talk to people about them...
By the way, would they film this with
in a place like this where...
GoPro or something?
I don't know. And it's weird because it's in this, Hong Kong hotel room. That's where he was.
And supposedly he claims he didn't go to Hong Kong to try to fight extradition or to hide. He came out a week later after he checked out of the hotel. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, I ain't hiding. What are you talking about?
That's the thing. I mean, he went to Hong Kong, and this is what he said. He went to Hong Kong because the environment there is, first of all, it's very
conducive to free speech. He said,
yes, it's conducive to free speech, and it's also, and he'll explain this, but it's also he can blend in. Now, I don't know how you blend in Hong Kong looking like this, but
right.
I mean, maybe
because maybe he
wears a burqa.
Pale white guys blend in well.
He's like 6 feet taller than everybody else.
Yeah, to a bunch of 3 foot yellow men and women.
Here we go.
This is the normal state of business. People tend not to take them very seriously and move on from them. But over time, that awareness of wrongdoing sort of builds up. And you feel compelled to talk about it. And the more you talk about it, the more you're ignored, the more you're told it's not a problem. Until eventually you realize that these things need to be determined by the public, not by somebody who is simply hired by the government.
Talk a little bit about how the American surveillance state actually functions. Does it target the actions of Americans?
Right
NSA
there. Right there. Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, what was Watergate about?
Right.
Watergate was a hotel where the Democratic National Committee was planning and holding their meetings to figure how they were going to basically run the election against Richard Nixon.
Right.
Nixon bugged the DNC.
Right.
Now, he didn't personally, but that's what the Republican Party did. Why? Because when he ran against Kennedy back in 61?
I don't remember.
Kennedy, he openly accused the Kennedy administration of doing that to him.
Right.
I forget who it was the other day.
Well, it's naive for us to think that this crap doesn't happen all the time.
A high Democratic strategist, a high-ranking Democratic strategist, and I'm trying to think of the person who said the other day, told a political pundit recently that whenever you're running a national campaign, you always know what your opponent is doing.
Absolutely, it's the job.
Look at what they did to Mitch McConnell.
Right.
The IRS targeting conservative groups.
Right.
Do you no one who believes that this government, who believes, that should be the bigger question, who believes that the government operates in some type of fair, ethical, or just manner anymore?
This is a dilemma though, because just because it happens all the time doesn't make it right. And I think that's what the liberals right now are doing. They're just kind of ignoring it. They're trying to hope it goes away because they can't. They know that they've had these feelings during when Gore lost to Bush. That whole mindset. I'm talking outside of the whole Supreme Court thing, but they all have thought this before. And when it's their guy, they just kind of like, oh, I don't know, look at that, and they'll talk about like. Star Wars.
But when does the left ever hold up in any kind of reverence the concept of the rule of law? You never hear the left talk about the rule of law. Look what they're doing with immigration right now.
Well, they do only when it's not their guy. Because by all means, the Patriot Act was the worst. I mean, when the Patriot Act came out,
is that true? It was written by Biden. No. In the late 90s.
I don't know. It probably makes sense. We always say Biden's stupid. I say he's stupid on purpose. But
right.
But anyway, let's listen to his answer because I think his answer right here can give us something to expand on.
Intelligence community in general is focused on getting intelligence wherever it can by any means possible that it believes on the grounds of sort of a self-certification that they serve the national interest. Originally, we saw that focus very narrowly tailored as foreign intelligence gathered overseas. Now, increasingly, we see that it's happening domestically. And
that's
to do
key.
that, the NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default.
Okay, I want to expand on that because, the idea that they were doing this, they were looking at things on foreign soil, the NSA trying to figure out what was going on with terrorists, stuff like that. And
right, because they say that phone lines, you would think if I'm going to make a phone call from Louisiana to London,
right,
that the cheapest rates would be a direct line, and that's not necessarily true. It might be cheaper for the phone companies or whoever my service provider is to route the call from Louisiana to San Francisco to Juneau to Toronto to... That may be the cheapest route.
Right.
So the world, when they make international phone calls...
There's only a couple of hubs that our calls go through.
So most international calls that somehow or another, they cross into domestic lines.
Right.
So their argument is in the name of safety and security and homeland defense, we need to monitor all the phone lines all the time. Just by chance, some type of terrorist organization, cell, or group or whatever
Mm-hmm.
places a phone call internationally, we need to be able to get wind of it.
Right, but the thing is if you understand how the telecommunication works, is that these calls come through hubs. So you actually set up your spy network, if you want to call it that. You set it up in these hubs, so you can catch the calls coming in from international places. Now you do have to watch where it goes, because it's coming into the States and it goes to another call. That's what the Patriot Act was supposed to do. It was supposed to watch international calls to domestic calls back and forth, and to basically do this on a massive level. Now let's not be naive. And we got to realize there's millions and millions of these calls a day. So they had this huge, massive network of computer databases that collect all this data, and they're looking for more or less a pattern. So these programs are very highly sophisticated, and they look for a pattern. Okay? Now,
patterns in the conversation,
patterns in the way that the calls are coming in, and who they're going to.
So in the actual phone path,
right? In other words, they have targets overseas that they're watching.
Right, you may be looking at calls from Yemen,
yes,
for whoever
So they're watching those calls, and they clusters. Okay, they got calls coming from Yemen going to San Francisco, let's say, and they're watching these. Of course, it wouldn't be Texas; it'd be like San Francisco, Chicago, or whatever. Anyway,
right.
Just tongue in cheek. But if they're watching those calls, they understand. First of all, they know a lot of the calls where they're coming from. They know who they are, and they're trying to find out who they're talking to. So they plug all this into a program, and the program kind of does its thing. So at some level, it's not a hands-on type of thing. It's not like there's an analyst sitting there looking at every single phone call. He's looking at data that's getting spit out through this what they call metadata. Okay, and to dig into a little more of the complex aspect of it.
Is that when they say mining? Is that what the metadata is?
Kind of. Like, for instance,
what is meta?
When we're recording this podcast right now,
right.
When I save that, it's going to ask me for the author, the name of the podcast. All of that goes into the metadata of that particular file that's created when I create this podcast.
Phone calls do the same thing.
Phone calls do the same thing.
Emails.
Yeah, I mean, you have who's a phone registered to. All that information
because
is
the internet
metadata.
is still considered part of telecommunications, right?
Yes. Yeah, in somewhere. But the point is that so they're looking at this file as it comes across, the title, the author. With phone calls, it's who owns the phone, where is it coming from, so all the associated information. So they're not necessarily listening to the conversation. Now, that's kind of the way the Patriot Act was set up. What he's talking about is, and this is what's all the uproar is that domestically, the NSA has shifted their efforts from just the international to recording every single phone call, and I'm not saying recording and listening to the actual words and the conversations, but they're doing the same thing what I just mentioned with metadata. They're doing that on all domestic calls.
Yeah, because technically they don't need to actually record or listen to the phone calls, because if they know that this phone number is Chris Pilier's phone number,
yes,
and they go and they see a pattern of in the last month or in the last 2 years, Chris has called this DC number.
Yes.
So we see that the number that Chris has called in DC, an average of 30 times a month for the last 18 months,
right,
happens to be the number to FreedomWorks.
Right.
We can guess that you're not talking about pizza,
yes,
and or social justice.
Absolutely. Now, this is where it really gets scary, because a lot of people out there are like, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. Who cares? I make a phone call to my wife.
That drives me nuts.
Yeah, this is the issue. Okay, let's say that I am a criminal, okay, or I'm doing things that are nefarious. Let's say I'm cheating on my wife, and I'm calling my girlfriend, okay, and it's 2005, and this information's getting recorded, okay, conversations going back and forth, and let's say that after 2005, let's say in 2006, I decided that, I'm going to straighten my life up. I'm not going to do that. In 2012, I go to run for president. And NSA has the ability to go look at all of my history. And what people don't realize is that the way that the Patriot Act was intended to be was that they would have to go to this court, okay, and get a warrant to actually dig into the phone call.
Is that the FISA court stuff?
Yeah. They would have to dig into the data in these phone calls, and they would have to do that. Okay. Now, if they are recording my information from 2005, all right, and in 2012 they get a warrant to go through my records because they consider me a threat, They didn't get a warrant in 2005. They're getting it in 2012.
Right.
So what he's saying here, and this is what he's saying, is that they're collecting all this data and storing it in databases, and that data doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. It's if you have a picture and you put it on the internet, it is there forever. I don't care if you delete it, whatever. Any data, you can destroy a hard drive with a hammer, and a computer wizard, for the most part, can some way or another get that data off of there, unless you completely, disintegrate it. Okay? So all this stored data, all this stuff that's stored, they can go back and find all that information,
and they can create a narrative about
absolutely
you. Just like you see hackers, and I don't mean government hackers, but you have one of the current things that you're seeing right now is these guys who can very easily hack into people, and they'll put child pornography on their computer and say, look, we're just going to make one phone call that you're a child pornographer, knowing that they can't ever get that off their hard drive unless you pay us.
Yep.
Now, if thug hackers can do that to average and ordinary citizens, what do you think the government can do when they have all your information?
Absolutely.
And they got 12 years worth of it. They can write your own story. They'll make you look like the next Timothy McVeigh.
Right.
They'll make you look like you started the next Klan movement or something.
Right.
I mean, that's what people have to understand, is that, yes, you're not doing anything wrong until what you're doing is deemed wrong by the people who want what you're doing to be deemed wrong.
Absolutely.
Whether it's in the court of public opinion or in the court of law.
Yeah.
In which case it becomes a kangaroo court, because now they're just making up evidence, but in a court of law,
and
it's looked at as evidence.
And the thing is like, who's to say right now we have angels running government? And they're not doing anything wrong.
Right.
But the next administration we get, they got a bunch of kangaroo court people in there.
That's the frustrating thing, is it's like, if this was during the Bush administration, the liberals would be, and I don't mean the progressives, the liberals.
Yeah.
The liberals would be upset. The liberals are sitting on their proverbial tongues right now.
Right.
They're just biting their tongues. They're not saying anything. But if a Republican do you want Jeb Bush with this information?
Hell no.
With this ability?
Hell no. I don't want anybody. I don't want Rand Paul or Ted Cruz with that information. Now, maybe I could trust them, and that's the whole thing here. It's about faith. It's not about principles. It's not about the Constitution to a liberal. Okay, that's why I would say liberals are liberals first. It's because it's a religion to them.
Yeah.
They have faith in these people that they put into power. And then when all of a sudden they don't do anything wrong, they don't have faith in them anymore, but they don't say nothing. They sit back and they talk about, Kim Kardashian or Star Wars or whatever, and they just kind of do their own thing.
And the sacrifice zones of the pollution-based economy have to become the sacred zones in the new clean and green economy. Those communities that were locked out of the pollution-based economy and pushed down by the pollution-based economy need to be lifted up in the clean and green economy. Well, guess what? Renewable energy. Guess what? Solar industry. Guess what? Wind industry. They now own and control 80% of the renewable energy resources. No more broken treaties. No more broken treaties. Give them the wealth. Give them the wealth. Give them the dignity. Give them the respect that they deserve. No justice on stolen land. We owe them a debt.
If you buy into that, all of a sudden, it's not about solar energy. It's more about giving the wealth to the people that we bully. It's about solving the problems of racism, of sexism, of religious intolerance, of war, of gross economic inequality. You understand? This is all Marxism. It's polemics. He talks about holding them down, and we need to bring them up. And he uses it in the context of the environment. It's a false dialectic. He's bringing you to, this man was the green czar in the White House under Barack Obama. Valerie Jarrett talked this guy up big time. This guy was set to do research and make policy so that Barack Obama could implement the plan. If you went to this conference, you probably were going there because about the green economy and green opportunity and all this stuff, and then you listen to him speak, and all of a sudden, it's all about the oppression of Indians and how we pushed them off their land. So if you didn't get that, I don't know what to tell you.
Arena Radio.
Check out Arena Radio on lanternsofliberty.us.
This is what scares me about the Tea Party.
Yeah.
This is where they're heading. They're outraged and have been. But if Romney would have been elected,
what would have happened?
Romney would have this power.
Right. Absolutely.
Romney right now, if it's President Romney right now, he has this ability.
And would Romney have done anything?
But if
Romney wouldn't have done anything about this power.
Listen, George Bush, his last year, I think Glenn said this on his radio show. George Bush told Glenn Beck in the Oval Office.
Right, I remember hearing him say this.
He said, "Any president that comes after me, when they find out the threat to the American people, to keep them safe,
right?
I don't care what their political ideology is, they will do exactly as I have done."
So do you think that, because obviously we've heard all the audio from Barack Obama, where Barack Obama wasn't behind all of this stuff
when he was Senator Obama.
Yes, and he didn't.
I really like Senator Obama. I'm not gonna lie to you. Senator Obama.
Well, he didn't stand for anything. He was easy to like.
I mean, he was against the wars.
Yeah,
he was against. He was for civil liberties.
Oh yeah, he was almost like a libertarian, except when you start getting to some of the.
He was against drone strikes.
Yeah,
Senator Obama was a good guy. I mean, granted, I didn't like his issue and his stand on, not giving life-saving measures to botched abortions.
Yeah,
that part of Senator Obama I didn't like. But man, I really liked, not killing due process. Senator, he was a big due process guy.
Yeah,
habeas corpus.
Absolutely. Until all of a sudden he went into the White House.
It's weird how he was against waterboarding but for drone strikes.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Well, that's the thing. I mean. Did they go into the White House? They open the doors of the White House and they open a book on the desk in the Oval Office, and he looks in it and goes, "Oh my God, I didn't realize it was like that." And all of a sudden he changed his mind.
I imagine,
or does he get punch drunk on the power?
I imagine the first time as President of the United States you get a full
a briefing,
security briefing. I imagine that's a real ass puckering moment.
But
when you think, wow. 330 million people, and these are the threats that we face at any moment.
But if you got a guy like Obama, who first of all, I don't believe anything he says. So the fact that everything he said back then, I don't believe any of that crap anyway.
No, listen. People who say, "I'm waiting for someone to prove that he lied," just isn't listening.
Yeah,
just go back and listen to Barack Obama's own words.
Yeah,
and then listen to them now.
Yeah.
I have a
He's
friend
a completely
who's
different
like,
person.
Where are the lies? What? Where are the lies? Like, did you just come out of a coma? I know you haven't, unless someone hacked your account for the last 5 years.
Well, that's the thing. You play something.
So you say Barack's a liar,
right?
You say you don't believe a thing he says, but so you don't think when he saw the defense, the briefings, like do you not think he cares about the American people? And they're safe?
No, I don't want to say that. I don't think that. I think that
because if you believe he's in for collapsing the economy and ultimately creating.
I've often said this before, and I'm going to go way out on the edge here, and I'll say that all the dictators that we've ever, and I'm not saying Obama is a dictator yet, but all the dictators out there love their people as a collective. They love their people as a collective.
Yeah, because of what they offer the state.
It's the individuals that stood in their way that they didn't like, and they got rid of those people.
Well, the people are the natural resources
of the state. So I think, if you look at Barack Obama as what I truly believe, that he is a progressive, which is basically somebody that's pushing the country towards socialist, communist.
Yeah, a progressive is a socialist. Yeah. And the end game of socialism is communism.
Right. So if you're pushing, and even if you're not pushing it to that extreme, but if you're pushing in that direction, you are trying to break the mores of the Constitution. And you're doing that at all levels. A Marxist, if he is in fact a Marxist, Okay? And he is pushing this ball down the road, and he's trying to break all these chains that are holding down the government and trying to make it mobile, trying to make it, like he said, not a charter of negative liberties. He's trying to install his, liberal constitution, if you will. He doesn't. It's a means to an end. So the NSA is just a way to get rid of the Fourth Amendment. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just like getting
contraception mandate.
Yeah, it's just
freedom of religion. Second,
absolutely.
First Amendment. Yeah.
So to me, when I look at all this stuff, I look at him getting into office, and if you understand, I did a podcast on trying to think of the name of the podcast, but it basically, if you understand Eastern culture, and if you go back as far as Sun Tse and the art of war, which actually helped develop jiu-jitsu. If anybody out there likes martial arts, jiu-jitsu uses the momentum of your opponent to defeat them. So if I try to punch at you, you move out of the way and you grab my arm and use my momentum as a weapon against me. So you make me fall or whatever, you make me lose my balance. So a progressive does the same thing. Alinsky did the same thing. Gramsci did the same thing. And what all they're doing is they have all these things that are moving in a certain direction, and they're simply using those things to continue the momentum to push the country off of its pillars of the Constitution. And it was actually the podcast was called Subversion. It was about Yuri Bezmenov. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah. Who doesn't? I mean,
yeah. but the whole point is that this to me is. I mean, I've even thought about it, and who knows that he was planning on this coming out. He wanted this to, because an agitator, if you understand what a community organizer is, they're an agitator.
Right.
They are trying to make a debate. They're trying to move the ball progressively. It's dialectics.
You're always trying to synthesize.
Absolutely.
Create new truth.
And they're doing it so much right now.
But through conflict.
Yes. And that's exactly what they did.
Constantly keep people in a state of conflict. Let's look.
That's what revolutionaries do.
As soon as this stuff came out, dude, they had Benghazi, they had the IRS, they had AP, they had the surveillance, and what are they doing right now? About to pass immigration.
Yeah.
While everybody's all up in a tizzy.
It is one of the last things that people are concerned about.
And even so much as to get people like Rubio to drink the Kool-Aid.
Right. And look, if you want to look at it in the most extreme sense, actually just recently watched a movie called The Red Violin recently, or The Violin, I forgot which name of it, but basically it was about this violin, and this violin ended up in the hands of
it's not about a ukulele.
No, not about a ukulele, but the violin ended up in the hands of a communist, and it was, of course, a violin is from Western culture, so the communist.
Remind me to tell you about the harmonica.
All right. Is this boring radio?
No, it's the blue harmonica. It was really good.
So the communists it was this interchange in the movie, which is very interesting, but by the communists, and they were talking about that they needed to eradicate this Western symbol, and they needed to basically do this as a form of rejection of that, and they were beating this guy up because he had it. They were bludgeoning him, not physically, but basically ridiculing the guy. And the whole idea was to progress the revolution. A lot of people don't realize, but communists, it's all about revolution. Everything they do is about evolving through revolution. Mm-hmm. Everything is about revolting against something. And it's always about capitalism, any kind of individualism or anything like that.
Whatever is in the bourgeoisie.
Right. And it's no different than agitating.
But that's what separated the Frankfurt School from the Leninists.
Right.
Where they said, look, you can't do this through bloody revolution. You can do this through evolution.
Absolutely.
Let's get into the culture.
Yes.
Let's implement political correctness, cultural Marxism. I want to go back to something you said, though. You said about him and progressives in general detaching the moorings of the Constitution from our society. Mm-hmm. If you really understand when progressivism in America came about in the early 20th century,
right?
The Constitution, as written in 1787, by say 1910, okay, was not even 150 years old yet.
Right.
But they thought that the progressives at that time thought it was out of date.
Right.
So what would you think if you have somebody like Hillary Clinton who says, no, I'm not a liberal. I consider myself a modern day progressive like that of the early 20th century. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Barack Obama And if you notice, nobody calls themselves a liberal anymore. They're all progressives.
Right.
So if they, in the 1920s, in the 1910s, they thought the Constitution was old and out of, antiquated.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think they think now?
Yeah. And
so it's not a matter you have to have a certain amount of respect for the Constitution to want to detach the moorings of the Constitution.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute disregard for the Constitution. They hate the idea of the Constitution.
Because it holds them down.
And not only that, but they believe, because of their stupid social justice mindset, that the United States was an oppressive nation built on the backs of the less fortunate. It was a bunch of rich white guys. Yeah, that's their core belief system.
Right.
When you get pressed into the corner, if I press you into a corner, whatever's really in you is going to come out.
Right.
It's like when they pressed Romney, conservatism wasn't at his core.
Right.
What was at his core was Romney care.
Right.
What was at his core was government.
Right.
So that's why it was awkward. When he was pressed, he couldn't. The one debate where he must have rehearsed conservatism
was when Barack Obama didn't show up.
He jumped back in the race.
Yeah.
People were like, "Oh, he is conservative." No, he had rehearsed everything.
Right.
Now, so when you look at Barack Obama as a progressive, and listen, all the way back from Van Jones to what was Mao Zedong and Mother Teresa.
What was her name?
Mao stuck tongue. What was her name?
I don't remember.
Anyway, but look at that. These are the characters.
Yeah.
To Arne Duncan. To who's the science czar? Holdren.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to
they're all pseudo-Marxists.
Who's the regulations are?
You talking about
Cass Sunstein?
He's not any longer.
No, I'm just saying. But these are the people that this administration has surrounded himself with.
Yeah.
Rombo, Deadfish Emanuel.
Yeah.
I mean, these are not moderates.
But if the thing
these
is
are radicals,
right? And the thing is that, and they knew that when they were going to nominate all these people or just bring them in, because if they were czars, they're not elected. They're more or less acting as in a dictator side of the executive branch.
Could you see a Republican or a conservative? Because Bush wasn't a conservative.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had a conservative since Reagan.
Right.
But could you see a conservative using these same powers to target homosexual groups because they're not Christian?
Well, the difference is the media would cover that. The media would cover it. See, the whole problem is...
Yeah, so it couldn't happen. It wouldn't be covered for it to happen.
The whole problem is that the media knows who these people are. And in most cases, they're within the media. I mean, Van Jones is always on MSNBC.
Right.
Okay? So, the media doesn't talk about it. So, and the thing is most people don't watch the news. I say most people. A very large majority of the country doesn't watch the news.
Right.
So, you can forget about that part of the country.
Right.
Okay? Those people are not engaged. All they care about is Kanye. Okay? All right, so then you have the people that do watch the news. A lot of them watch NBC, ABC, CBS, the mainstream media news, right? The traditional
mainstreams,
right? And they do that
not cable news,
and they do that over the sink while doing dishes or cooking.
Right.
They're not engaged with it. Okay, and when a name like Holdren comes up, Brian Williams is not going to say, and oh, by the way, the communist Van Jones, who's now the they're not going to get that. So, and what's crazy is Barack Obama knows that.
Right.
He knows that. Now, we could argue all day, is the media controlling the White House or the White House controlling the media? We could have that debate. But the bottom line is it doesn't matter who they hire. It doesn't matter that this woman was up there and she said Mao Zedong and Mother Teresa were her two idols.
Right.
Okay?
In the same speech.
Right. And and Fox News played it for what? Weeks. 2 million people?
Yeah.
And then it got on the internet and it kind of went around, eventually the woman left but where is she now?
But her husband, as soon as she left, her husband got a job in the White House.
Yeah. So, and what happened with Van Jones? Van Jones in the middle of the night, was it Christmas night or something like that? They got rid of him?
Yeah.
All right. So
but then he goes to the Center for American Progress.
He goes to the Center for American Progress.
That's giving the talking points to the White House.
Yeah. And that's exactly what will happen to our Attorney General. If he resigns, he'll go to the Center for American Progress, make a 6-figure salary, and he'll be making actually more headway there than he would be as Attorney General.
I just guess all this came about because we're talking about Snowden.
Right.
I don't think there's anything that he can reveal that's going to outrage the American people enough. And even if it did, the American people have lost the ability to be able to hold their government accountable.
Well,
what form of accountability? Look, you and I went to D.C.
Mm-hmm.
We stood at the Lincoln Memorial,
right,
where we saw, they said 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And it was easily 1 million plus.
Right.
Okay. We've been to rallies. We've shaken signs. We've sat through seminars. We've given seminars. We've written books. We've been on the front of trying to wake people up, and Barack Obama was reelected.
Right.
Now, you can go into a lot of we can dissect why and all this other stuff, but the bottom line is Barack Obama is still there. His administration is still there.
Mm-hmm.
We know there is a disregard for the Constitution.
Right.
What left do we have?
Well,
Hillary is going to be the next president.
I agree. I think she will be the next president. I think the only thing we really can do,
because the media owes it to her,
is try to get right.
That's why we won't get any justice for Benghazi.
They feel guilty about the whole Clinton thing.
We're not going to have any. We will have nothing. No justice over Benghazi.
No.
This new scandal with the prostitute, that'll be laughable. Mm-hmm. A couple of security guys got a couple of hookers. That's great.
Well, I think that, first of all, what really kind of got these scandals going was the AP scandal.
Well, because it hit too close to home.
Well, that's what happened is the AP scandal showed that they're not immune to the Chicago tactics, the bully tactics of Barack Obama, Rahm Emanuel, those people. Okay,
Chicago tactics,
right?
How about the East Berlin tactics,
right?
Of freaking Germany.
So I think that this coverage on the scandals lately has been just simply a bitch flap from the media. That's why I say that who controls who. The media's got a bunch of liberals there too. So and none of these people get along. None of them get along because they have their own elitist idea how things should be, and they want to control it.
And I think about how little President Nixon actually did in comparison,
and resigned, and
was forced to resign.
Well, does that show you honor? I mean, I've been thinking about that. Like,
dude, I saw Dan Quayle give a speech the other day in reference to Murphy Brown, and I thought to myself, wait, when was that? And it was the late 80s. And it was the fact that Murphy Brown was glorifying being a single mother on national television. Today, 40% of our characters on primetime television are homosexual.
40%?
40%
wow.
of primetime characters. Now, if you look at homosexuality just from the standpoint of what we know the communist goals were using homosexuality, make it normal, make it natural, make it acceptable. That was one of their stated goals.
Right. Well, let's look at it like this.
4% of the population, liberally, and here's another interesting fact.
What's the percentage of population that's
4%?
That's homosexual?
And that's if you, on the high end.
Okay.
It's probably closer to 1%.
Okay.
1% of the population, 40% of the characters. You think they're not trying to normalize it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And liberals they're always pushing
the boundaries. Idiots.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this goes back to what my parents did. My parents always thought I was a rebel, and their parents always thought they were rebels, right? And we always look at that as just some kind of normal phenomenon within the generations.
Right. That's dialectics.
But what it is, it's progressivism,
right?
And whether it's natural, whether it's some kind of natural progression, or it's actually intended by Marxists in our system that are simply pushing through evolution, this idea of evolution and progressivism, trying to create this new. It's like what's that television show they got one out? It's called
The New Normal.
The New Normal, right? Which it's like two single dads and a girl or something like that.
It's just another, whether it be Modern Family.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. Look, I think, and look, if you identify your entire life's identity based on how much or how little melanin you have in your skin,
right,
I pity you.
Yeah.
If you base your entire life's identity upon one 3-minute act,
right,
on a good day, I pity you.
3 minutes?
3.5. On a good day. With a Monster Energy drink in you.
Okay.
I pity you.
Right.
I pity anyone who's not more than just one small facet of themselves.
Right.
Listen, your skin color, your ethnicity, your sexuality, your gender, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're more than that. We were created more than that. But all that being said, we're in no position as a people. We're in a worse position today than we were as a people in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to put the cork back on the bottle, put the genie back in the bottle, and try to get this nation back on. This snowball rolling down the hill is too big.
Well, to me,
you're only going to get steamrolled if you get in front of it.
I think that by what you said was, first of all, what you said is profound, because it's exactly right. Is that if you have this prosperous life and you focus your efforts on one little facet of your life, which is your sexuality. I mean, now some people, their whole life is their sexuality, okay, and that's they end up being some kind of crazy person or whatever. But I mean, serial killers, their whole mindset is about sexual acts,
right?
So, but I think that in being a small government conservative, the idea is if you want to be that way, then so what? It doesn't affect me.
Right.
But the fact that you want to be that way, if 4% of the population wants to have sex, a man wants to have another sex with another man, or a woman wants to have, that's fine. 4% of the go do what you want. If it ends up being 20%, that's fine. But don't make me have to accept it. Don't make me have to teach my child that it's acceptable to do that.
Right.
Just like as you don't want me to tell you or your child that it's not acceptable to have sex with the same sex.
Right.
You know? So this idea of equality, this idea of being liberal or progressive and being free and open society and all this, it's an absolute fallacy that the left believes that, because everything they believe is totalitarian in nature.
Absolutely.
It's you need to believe what I
heart,
believe.
It's intolerant.
Yes. And the thing is there's nothing in history that proves that their way works. So it's either, and it's two things. You have liberals that simply want it that way,
right,
because they don't either like themselves or they don't like the way things are, so they want to make everybody else suffer because they're happy and they're not, or whatever. Okay,
right.
And then you have the progressives that say, you know what? We're going to utilize those people, those liberals that are unhappy and miserable,
right,
and they don't like the fact that, you know, these conservatives and the nation's been built on this Christian foundation.
Part of the cool clique in high school.
Right, and they don't want that, so we're going to utilize that as a momentum.
Right.
To push the country over the cliff.
We're going to tap into that animosity and anger.
Yes. And
we're going to use them.
Yeah. And that dialectic has been there for hundreds and thousands of years.
It's been there. I would pinpoint it roughly about the time that Adam took a taste of that fruit.
Well, it's evil.
When sin entered the world, the rest of mankind and all of creation came under the curse. Period.
Yeah. And the thing is it's evil. That's why it's been around since the beginning of time.
One last thing before we end this. Think about Jason Collins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, basketball player, comes out. He's the gay Jackie Robinson.
Right.
Okay, first pro athlete to come out in a locker room openly gay. Right. He's marching in Boston, gay rights parade, gay pride parade. Right. Everybody's woo. That's great. So on a national talk show, sports talk show, guy calls up from the South, says, listen, I don't think it's a good thing that we're lifting up him for being bold. He said, It's not courage to, in America in 2013, to come out as a gay man. If he was living in Iran and he came out,
that's courage.
That's courage.
Yeah.
He said, so the sportscaster was going to be a real smart aleck, right? He says, well, let me ask you a question. Who would you want your kid to idolize, Michael Jordan or Jason Collins? He said, so he bit. He said Michael Jordan. He said, well, Michael Jordan is an adultering gambleaholic.
That's a dialectic.
Absolutely.
It's a false dialectic.
So I called the guy up afterwards and I told him, I said,
I didn't know that about Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Well, here's the difference between Michael Jordan and Jason Collins. Michael Jordan isn't walking in the adulterous pride parade. He's not advocating for gambleaholics.
Right.
But because Jason Collins likes putting penis in his mouth and wears a flag on his shirt that says, I like penis in places that it's not supposed to be naturally, now I have to accept it. That's the difference. You want to have a lifestyle? You're in America. You're free to do that.
Right.
You don't need my permission.
Right, but they want your permission
because they have to alleviate their own guilt.
Yes. Well, it's not only that, but they feel the fact that you have not come out and told them that it's okay, that you're being prejudiced against.
Absolutely.
Them. And that's communitarian in nature.
Communitarian. Anybody want to play the $5 million association game? Communitarians, kind of like what? Yes.
Yeah. Strip down all of the rules to undermine. It's a revolution.
Absolutely.
It's cultural in nature.
Revolution.
Right. So we're gonna cut this short now.
Right, short.
And we're gonna try to see how much feedback we get from the conversation about homosexuality. But thank you for joining us today. Be sure to go to lanternsofliberty.us. Check it out there. Also go to our new site, the battlefieldofideas.com. If you have a Twitter account, be sure to join with Twitter. It's very easy. You just basically click a button, and you can interact with some of the posts there. It's a pretty interesting way of interacting with other people, and in an interesting way of reading the news through Twitter. It's pretty cool. So check that out there, the battlefieldofideas.com. Also, you can check out on YouTube, go to Paul Revere Again, that channel, and check out Arena Radio. We're going to have these podcasts as well as some of my podcasts there, and we're going to even look for some of our oldie but goodies from our Tea Party Patriots,
we'll chop
Hot Tea Radio stuff. So we're going to go find some stuff there, and we appreciate you joining us, and thank you for so give us some time and spread the word and spread liberty, and we'll be back.
If it becomes wayward, who shall control it? If it becomes unjust, who shall trust it? As sentinels of the country's watchtower, I beseech you to watch and guard with sleepless dread that corporation which can make all property and rights, all states and people, and all liberty and hope its playthings in an hour and its victims forever.
The Expats Radio Program.